You can see my pajamas? No, you can't. No, you can't. I think that's it. I think I've gathered all of my books. Hi guys, nice to meet you if you're new here. Nice to see you if you're not new here. Welcome back. How's it going? If you're new here, you can stay. That would be cool. But I'm not gonna force you to do nothing. Anyways, today we are doing, it is windy outside. Can you hear that? The wind stopped. And it's echoey in here. It's always echoey in here. I will never win. I'm going through, instead of doing a full year wrap up, I never do wrap ups. We'll make a change in the new year. Don't you worry. I will do wrap ups next year. But I didn't do any this year. I'm gonna go through each month and tell you my favorite book of each month. So in January, I'm gonna tell you my favorite book of that month, and then February, and then so on and so forth. So that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna tell you all of my favorite books of each month. Do I have, most books it's one book. I mean, most months it's one book, but there are like a couple months in here where I have 2 books or so. We're gonna kind of just, hop into it. We're having a bad hair day. We're gonna ignore it. We're gonna just, keep going. Yep. Okay. I've got my handy dandy iPad here so I can go on Goodreads and make sure I'm right. Let's talk about my favorite books of each month. In January, literally the second book I read this year was the Mindfuck series. I think that's like top 3 of the books I read this year. I think about that book all the time. Sometimes I forget that it was a book and not like a movie that I watched. Vivid things that had happened and like where they were. And it was just such an amazing book. So the Mindfuck series by S.E. Abbey. Lana is a serial killer. She's like a revenge serial killer, and she meets Logan. Logan is an FBI agent, and lo and behold, they are falling for each other. But Logan, the FBI agent, is trying to figure out who's killing these people. You know who's killing those people? Lana. Lana is killing those people. He's working on her case while she's doing it, and she's trying to hide it from him. What kind of relationship is an FBI agent and a serial killer? You find out in the book. But Lana is such main character energy. I get it, she's the main character, but main character energy. She's amazing. The book is amazing. The revenge, the story behind it is definitely can be triggering. So definitely look up your trigger warnings for this book. But it was so amazing. The writing was amazing. The characters were amazing. I read the entire book in just a couple of days. There's 5 books in this one book, okay? I could read another 20 books of this series. I think the whole storytelling was amazing. I could go on and on about this book. Definitely top 3 of the year. The Mindfuck series was my favorite book in January. I did forget to tell you, I don't know if you care, I read a total of 56 books this year. I don't know if I will finish another book. I'm trying. Anyways, last year sometime I read ACOTAR, and then I put off reading the rest of the series for so long. I read A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin in February. My favorite book I read in February was A Court of Wings and Ruin. I know a lot of people love Asimov, but this is my favorite of the stories, or of the book, of the series. Asimov is great. It is great. But what happens in this book, the politics in the book, okay, you just wanted attention. What was your favorite book in February? I have no words. I was enthralled. I felt like I was in the book. The descriptions and like the details in this book. This is another story that I forget that this is something I read and not something I watched. You are so funny. You are just so hilarious, aren't you? Aren't you just so hilarious? I love this book. Oh, should I be telling you the ratings? I forgot to tell you the ratings of the Mindfuck series. So the Mindfuck series is a 6-star read. 6-star read. This is a 5-star read. In March, I have a couple of honorable mentions because I do want to mention them. They aren't my favorite books, but I do want to quickly mention them because I did really enjoy them. But it is Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes and Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. They were just great books. That's it. They weren't my favorites, but I felt like I need to mention them. My favorite book in March was Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. I'll be honest, when I read the first book, I was like, I don't like this book that much. And I don't know what it was about the first book, but I didn't really like it that much. But I gave it another chance. I read the second book, and I really enjoyed this book. I love the female main character in this book. About Iris and Declan, and it's a marriage of convenience trope, which was fun. I think this was my first marriage of convenience that I read. Basically, the premise of like all the stories is each brother's three brothers. In order to get their like inheritance, I think, like their grandpa died, left them something in the will. In order to get what he left each of them, they had to complete something. This book, he needed to get married and have a family. This was definitely a fun read. I did enjoy this read. I'm gonna give it a 4-star because I think Final Offer is gonna be my favorite. So this was a 4-star read, but it was definitely my favorite of March. And then in April, I read a total of 1 book. 1, because I was in a book slump. And the one I did read, I did enjoy. If I had read others, it probably wouldn't have been my favorite, but I do enjoy the series. The Fey Princess by Nikki St. Crow. This is part of the Vicious Lost Boys series. I do really enjoy that series. They're fun and quick reads. It's kind of like a Neverland retelling, but it's definitely dark romance, and it's a why choose romance. So it's a fun read, and I enjoy it. I think my favorite one is probably the dark one, which is the second book in the series, but I didn't read that this year. I read that last year. But Fey Princess is the only book I read in April, and I did still enjoy the book. Are they amazing? No, but they're just fun to read, and I enjoy them. In May, I read quite a few books, so another honorable mention is A Court of Silver Flames. Love that book, but it wasn't my favorite. My favorite was actually Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This was just such a fun read. I feel like this feeling I got through this book was something different. Like, I've been reading for a while, but this book, I got up early to read this book before work because I couldn't get enough of it. This is about Brianna and Jacob. This is kind of like a workplace. There's a lot of things happening in her life. She's getting divorced. Her brother needs a kidney transplant. She wants this promotion in her job, but you know who might get that promotion? This other doctor. And you know who that is? Jacob. They have like a not a great first meeting. He's an anxious person. There's a lot of like him being anxious and how he's coping with it and stuff like that. So he writes her a letter. He apologizes for their interaction and stuff like that. It was so cute. And that's what they do. They go back and forth and write letters to each other. She realizes he's not that bad, and she just understands him. And it's just, I love this book. I love this book. And if you haven't read it, definitely read it. I definitely recommend this book. I also read a couple of good books in June. We're not going to talk about some of them for reasons, but one of the books that I did read in June that I did absolutely love, I forgot to grab, so give me a second. Barbarian's Prize by Ruby Dixon. I could sit and talk to you about these stories all the time. These are not stories for everybody. I know a lot of people don't like them. I know a lot of people love them. It's about these girls who got picked up by aliens, and then the aliens kind of just like drop their compartment on a planet for some reason that happens, and then these other alien guys, these barbarian men, find them, and then they're mates, and then it's just fun. It's a fun little read. Definitely not for everybody. Maybe search your trigger warnings up for these books. In July, again, quite a few good books in July. I read Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I read this other book, but it falls under St. Martin's Press, so we're not going to be talking about that book, unfortunately, but it was a great book. This book came out of nowhere for me. This book had been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I just didn't have any desire to pick it up, but I had it set for one of my TBRs. I like picked the book for a TBR, and I was like, okay, well, I am gonna make myself read this book, and it was one of my favorite. I haven't been telling you star ratings. Oh my gosh, I suck at that. This book was just not what I expected at all, and it's The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is about, I love this book so much. This was, I think part of it was just because like it was so different than just like a regular romance book. And like, I love a romance book. You could slap the same thing on different books and I will eat that up. I will eat every single one of them up. Same story, different book. I will read it. This romance book was just different. Florence is a ghostwriter for this author, and she has a deadline. She doesn't think that she's going to meet this deadline. She goes to talk to this new editor about how she needs a little extension on her deadline, and he says, no, girl, like, give me the book, I need it, you know? Then she thinks, what a jerk. What? Just give me an extension. Anyways, something happens. She has to go back home. She left home for reasons in the book that you find out. But I don't know if you can hear that, but okay. She left home for reasons that you find out in the book, but she goes back home for something that happens. And all of a sudden, this man pops up. A ghost. A ghost. Okay, hey. Like, I'm back home, but hey. Hey, ghost. How can I help you? She sees ghosts. This book was just so fun, so different than a regular romance book. I absolutely love like the ghost aspect, but it wasn't so like paranormal. It wasn't like, oh my god, I'm scared to read this at night. No, it was not that at all. It was just so fun to read about. And there's like other cute interactions she has with ghosts because like I said, she can see them. And it was just so sweet. I love this book so much. Ashley Poston will forever be a book I buy. I have the 7-year slip, haven't read it yet, will read it in the new year, but this book was amazing. I gave this book like a 4.25 star. It was great. It was great. Quickly, to go back on other books that I forgot to tell you, ratings, 5 stars. And these I usually rate around like a 3.5 star because they're all pretty similar in story. I think this one's like a 3.75, and which are still good. I recommend them. 3 stars recommend. In August, I also found one of my favorite reads of the year. Like I said, top 3 books of the year. This is one of them, and it's Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This book, I do have a vlog of me reading this book, so if you want to see like more into detail, more of like a review, more of like reactions, I read 2 books in that video. This was one of them. This was my highest rated book on my TBR at the time. Is there gonna be a reread this year? I'm really excited to reread it and annotate it. It was just, this book is amazing. The meaning behind the book, the things that happen in this book, so enthralled. Yet again, another book that I can't tell you that I actually read it. I definitely think sometimes you're reading the words on a paper, sometimes you're thinking about what's going on, and sometimes you're in the story. Forget the outside world, you're inside the story. In this book, I was standing right next to her. I was seeing through her eyes. I was seeing through his eyes. I was in there. Tracy Deonn, this was amazing. One of my favorite books of the year, top 3. Can't wait to read Bloodmarked, but I will be rereading this before I read Bloodmarked because I have to. I think I'm gonna like kind of listen to the audiobook on top of rereading this, but I want to annotate this book and then go into Bloodmarked. This is like a 5-6 star read. In September, I have 2 favorites on here, okay? So first we're gonna go in to a book I don't physically have, which is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. It's basically about Bo and Win, who have a one-night stand and accidentally get pregnant. Win is like scared to tell Bo about it, and she eventually tells Bo, and Bo's like, okay, like we're doing this together. I mean, we created it together, let's do it together. You see like their friendship evolve, you see the relationship evolve, you see them evolve as characters. There are a lot of heavy topics in this book though, so please search up your trigger warnings, but this book was so amazing. I love this book. It was a 5-star read. I ate this book up. Also, another book that I read in September for the first time, which has been sitting on my shelf since I started collecting books. When I had this little cubby of books, this book has been there. And how come I haven't picked it up? Don't know, because this is one of the best books I've read this year. I actually might need to do top 5 instead of top 3. Anyways, this is definitely one of the best books I've read this year. And it is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This book was amazing. I couldn't just okay. Like Paige Turner, please tell me what's happening next. Pip has a senior project and she goes, oh, instead of like, researching a bunch of stuff, you know what I'm gonna do? I am gonna solve this murder case. There was a girl who was murdered a couple of years ago in her town, and it was decided that the boyfriend did it. And Pip doesn't believe that it was a boyfriend. Pip thinks it had to be somebody else. But the thing is also no longer alive. So she can't go ask him questions either. While she's trying to figure out who actually killed Andy, someone is like leaving her messages like, what are you doing? Like, stop digging into this. You're just gonna get yourself hurt. This is another story. I'm gonna keep talking about it. This is another story that I felt like I was standing in there watching all of this happen. This book, oh, I love this book. YA mystery thriller, and I'm not very much into those because I get scared, but this book, I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't stop reading it. Reading it late at night, reading it by the pool, reading it in the morning when I wake up. Couldn't stop, couldn't put it down. I love this book. 5-star read. What month are we on? We're on October. October, I had 3 favorite books and I could not choose between them because they were all so amazing. So we're gonna just kind of go quickly through them. The first one is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hill series. This is about Aurora and Russ, who have a one-night stand. What do you know? They have a one-night stand, and then they just, you know, split ways. And then the next day, they are both camp counselors in the same group. So they get to see each other again. I love the setting of this. I love the characters in this. They're also going through their own personal things, and watching that unravel and what's going on in their own head and how much they actually support each other when they find out about the other person's stuff is beautiful. It's just fun. This was like a 4.5-star book. Then we have Heartless by Elsie Silver. I think I talk about this book too much, so we're not going to talk too much about it, but it's the second book of the Chestnut Spring series. This is about Kate and Willa. Willa is a babysitter for his little boy, and then, you know, the rest is history. You know, love the Chestnut Spring series. This is my favorite so far that I read, and I'm currently reading Reckless. This book was great. Like I said, I talk enough about this book that I don't need to keep telling you what it's about, but I love it. My last favorite book of October was Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is a book sleeve from Lilac Library on Etsy. This is Once Upon a Broken Heart. Definitely like magical, whimsical. Really, honestly, I think it's fun to go into these stories without really knowing what's going on, because it kind of just throws you into the story. There's not too much world building. This is an easy fantasy to get into. I really recommend it. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I didn't know much about it, and I think that was my favorite way of going into it, but I definitely recommend Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. In November, again, I have quite a few books that I'm gonna go over, but we're gonna go over them quickly. I read the entire Hunger Games series. Well, I did not read Ballad yet, but I read the first 3 of Hunger Games. There are reading vlogs, spoiler reading vlogs on each of these books. Mockingjay is not out yet, but Hunger Games and Catching Fire are both out. So if you want to watch my reactions, if you want to see like what I'm talking about, they're full spoiler reading vlogs. I read these 5-star series. Love, 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 love. I also read The Ballad of Never After. Again, bought a book sleeve for it, but this book was so great and okay. Like, what happens at the end? I need to jump into that book. I want to immediately get into that book right now. I'm busy doing other stuff, but this book was amazing. I absolutely recommend this series again. That was like a 4.75 star read. Last book. So far, we're still in December, but I've only read a couple of books in December. I've been busy. So my favorite book of December was Daisy Hates. I'm currently reading Magnolia Park's Long Way Home, but I still think Daisy Hates is one of my favorite books. Again, I don't want to tell you too much about this story. Not for everybody. It is not for everybody. It is like a toxic relationship. It's just more like entertaining. I really enjoyed this book though, and I'm gonna give it a 4-star. That is all of my favorite books that I've read this year, each month. It's my favorite book from each month. I have a couple of months that I had multiple books that I loved, but these are some of my favorite books that I've read this year. I will see you in the new year. Thanks so much for sticking with me this year. I've had so much fun doing my YouTube stuff. Thanks so much for supporting me. I really do appreciate it. I cannot wait to see what the new year brings us on this channel. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for all the content that I already have planned out. I'm currently filming a video that I'm really excited about. Other than that, that is all for me today. Let me know what some of your favorite books was this year. Let me know what, maybe if you want to tell me your top 3, if you want to tell me top 5, top 10, if you want to tell me every single month what your favorite book is. I love to read the comments from you guys. So other than that, I will see you hopefully next time. Bye. Thanks for watching.